Hi, before watching the first episode of Spotlight, just a bit of context to explain the concept. So the aim is to shine a light on the people behind the websites, the businesses, the associations, in a relaxed and friendly chat about the history of the brand, its profile, and where it's going. So in this very first interview, I'm speaking with Dr. Gianfranco Conti and Dylan Viñales. And throughout our chat, which was actually meant to be lasting about 25 minutes, it ended up being over an hour. We can see the passion and the hard work which fuels the language gym. So really, forgive my tired face. I'm recovering from COVID and the choice of background in the video, which makes me look a tad strange, but I really hope you enjoyed it. And by the way, a big thank you to Dylan and Ariella for their fantastic jingle. Hope you enjoy it.
Spotlight, Spotlight with Jérôme. Sit down, the show's starting.
Hey, today I'm delighted and honored, obviously, to chat with two rock stars of the language teaching world, the brains and the muscle behind the language gym. I hope you like that. Website and book collection. So welcome, Dr. Gianfranco Conti and Dylan Viñales. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Okay, so first question. You two, well, I don't know who wants to start. Where's the love of languages coming from? Because you've got multicultural background. So I don't know who wants to answer first, Jan or Dale. What was it coming from?
I'll start. I'll
Okay,
just tell
go
you
on.
very basically. My mom's English, or actually half English. So when I was very little, I was exposed to her switching from Italian to English all the time. And as you know, when you're little, it's kind of about 6 months you start figuring out that one person is to be spoken to in English and Italian. But I was confused because my mother spoke both, and my grandmother was a very strict Austrian lady who would speak to me in Italian, but tell me off constantly in Austrian. So I kind of got that. And then, of course, when I started to go to visit my cousins back in England, then, of course, I started to understand how certain things in England were more fun than Italy and vice versa. And eventually, when I got to the age of, like university age, I decided that I was going to study languages and eventually move to England, and then everything else happened. So that's how.
Excellent. What about you, Dale?
Well, I grew up in Gibraltar, so I grew up bilingually with English and Spanish, and then I studied French at university, and it just kind of kicked off a process of loving languages and loving the fact that if you learned another language, then you could speak to more people. So it kind of just spiraled. I learned Italian after university, and then I studied some Greek, and then I learned some German. And each time it would be because I had a group of friends that spoke that language. And I think my two passions in life are music and languages, and they just really tie in together so nicely.
Fantastic.
The Italian, and being a little bit of a naughty young man, I also noticed the advantage, I don't know if I should speak about this, of knowing languages to sort of meet ladies in through languages. So that's how French kicked in, because I just thought, that's a very Italian man in me. Then, of course, with age, I became a much better man that way.
I hope my son will be going the same way also, because obviously mom's Spanish, French, he speaks 3 languages, he's 6. So that's really cool. And you, Dylan, of course, is the same, isn't it? You have your two little ones. They probably speak quite. What do you speak in Spanish?
Yeah, so they speak Spanish and English, and they also have quite good Mandarin that they study at school. So we also have my wife speaks them in Polish as well. So we've got
that is such a massive advantage, isn't it?
Dylan is also an amazing father teacher, because when I went to visit him the first times around, and this is a tip for every parents out there who want to do the same, he actually sets up his little shop for the daughter. So the daughter becomes a shopkeeper, and they do role plays all the time, buying shops, buying things. So it's actually a very committed father that way, because as you know, normally from father to son or daughter, it doesn't quite passes on, but usually it's mother to child, right?
Okay.
So Dylan actually makes a lot of effort in that respect, which I rarely see done when you have this kind of bilingual parentage sort of scenario.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you,
Wow.
Today, we actually, my son and I, we wrote a book, we wrote a storybook about our dog Lily. You may have heard about Lily. So it's just ways of, it's all Lily está jugando, Lily está leyendo. Basically, we took all the pictures of Lily that we had and made it into a storybook. So yeah, there's lots of ways to either through role play or storytelling just to further promote language.
So good. I'm so impressed. Wow. Okay, I was already impressed with all the stuff you do, but that's really so cool. Second question. Language Gym was founded in 2012, Gian, is it correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So what made you create the website then?
Very good question, because it's often neglected by people who ask me. Basically, my school was completely jumping onto the bandwagon of the iPad, right?
Okay.
So everyone had to use the iPad in the school where I was at the moment, which is basically where Dylan works now. And that made us panic, because they wanted us to do something called inquiry-based learning, whereby these kids have a big question, and without any language had to do all this sort of things. So I thought, oh my God, I have to do something about this. So I created the Language Gym right there and then, because we were going to go one-on-one. And I thought, at least if you're going to go one-on-one with the iPad, let's go my way rather than this random inquiry-based way, which was really not good for the kids at that level of proficiency. It's great for A-level students, don't get me wrong, and maybe high-level GCSE, but primary, yeah. So that's how it came about. It was not to do with commercial plans to make money or anything. In fact, I made it free for, I think, 7 years.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think we had it. I knew about until 2019, isn't it? You had it there. Then you met with Dylan and Ronan. Is that in the Garden International School? Is that correct? And
yeah, so
is that why you decided to say, well, we're going to be expanding the website? Is that what you thought you were going to be doing?
Yeah. So basically, my original business partner, I mean, business, but not really, it just helped me to create it. Unfortunately, wasn't really committed to it because he was not a language teacher. And I really valued both Ronan and Dylan's very different characters with very different talents, different interests even, within the ambit of languages still, but very different. So I thought, what a better combination, you know, like the three of us getting fresh ideas, young people, very important, practicing teachers, which to me was an extremely important thing, because they then could try it out with the kids as well. Yeah. And so and Dylan has a specific talent with the technology, more than myself and Ronan when it comes to apps and all these kind of things. So each of them brought something into it, but it was decisive. It was a change making decision to get them on board, because without them, I think it would have stagnated and it would have not become as student friendly, number one, and so fast, you know, because Dylan especially is a kind of guy who wants kind of quick reaction from the kids, and I get that. And the vocab trainer, for instance, was entirely Dylan's idea. Big credit for that.
So how was your first meeting there? So you met in the school. So what were you teaching, Gian, at the time? Well, because obviously you speak many languages. So what were you teaching then and there?
I was teaching French and Spanish at that time. And to be very honest with you, at that point in my career, I was already thinking about moving on. So when Dylan came in, it was actually quite good, because there was a nice dynamic there of three foreigners, club of three boys, you know, all interested in the same sort of thing. So it was a magic encounter, to be honest with you, on many levels. Yeah.
Okay. And Dylan, how was it to meet with Gian? Was it how did you get on straight away, or how, or did you hit it off straight away from the beginning, or was it just how How was it?
Yeah, we definitely hit it off from the beginning. I just wanted to just interject and say, speaking about the early days and the development of the language gym, that about Ronan, our third person, he's less visible on social media at the moment, but the work that he does behind the scenes is really invaluable. He does amazing work, and in terms of the development of the site, also his input is part of what makes.
Yeah, that's the reason
site
why obviously I wanted to speak about him, because I know he does a lot in the background too. So that's great to know.
And he's French like you.
Are there still some of the original games that they were at the beginning of the website that they are still now? Or
Absolutely, a vast section. So the verb trainer is still there,
what?
but has been improved massively, again thanks to the contribution by Dylan and Ronan. Dylan is very much the creative guy, but also the guy who wants it to function in a user-friendly kind of way. Ronan is extremely pragmatic, so in fact he tends to be the business sort of guy. He's the no-nonsense guy, sometimes a bit too no-nonsense, typical French. So he will tell you things to the face without necessarily being too tactful, but effective in that way, because then he sparks off a conversation. And often Dylan and I, to find a compromise with Ronan, come up with a brilliant idea. So it's actually, in a way, in the greater scheme of things, is good. So there is the verb trainer, which is going to improve even more, Jérôme, because what we're going to do, we're going to put the voice. So when the person is typing, there will be a voice saying "je vais." Otherwise, you get the sense that it becomes like a written drill only, and this is important. I'm even contemplating the idea that I haven't even suggested to Dylan yet, that when the child is hesitating and opens the cheat sheet, actually it gets the oral input, "je vais," and then it has to look, so it matches the "je vais," which is still in his head or her head, with the thing that is looking about. We need to see if it's workable. We're going to add more verbs again, Dylan's idea. Also, the workouts have all been there, but it's been improved again with the input of Dylan and Ronan, especially at the higher end. And the boxing game, of course, was there. In fact, if anything, what Dylan and Ronan have done, have got rid of my favorite games, the karate, the kung fu.
Oh yeah, we got the karate. One game, Jan made a game at the beginning. It was called bench press, and the reason bench press didn't work. Bench press was like boxing game, but without the time constraint to just have the English, and you had to. If you what happened, Jan? Every time the guy lifted the weights, the sound effect. I had to beg Jan to remove the sound effect. It sounded.
It was a bit dodgy.
It was like this. It was like.
Oh, okay.
The sound effect. Yeah, it was a mixture of
it probably wasn't
in between pain and pleasure. Let's just put it that way. So maybe it wasn't going to work.
It was a major disruptor. It was a major disruptor. But even the rock climbing game, the sound was quite was scary at the beginning. So we settled for something in the middle that wasn't too scary. Because we had reports of kids who would basically simultaneously lose when the teacher would either be absorbed into his or her own thoughts, or would go out for to tell somebody off or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And they would come back, and then the kids all together would just action it, and then you would have 30, with the. So we decided to make it a little bit mild.
Surprised. They are very creative, the kids, at times, aren't they? How do you know? I forgot to ask that question. Where does the language come from, the name? Why did you decide about, obviously, where's it coming from?
So I had a student whose name, oh God, he's going to kill me if he knows, whose name, I forget, we taught so many kids, a lovely Chinese boy who basically was siblings and him, I coached as a language teacher for years. And so this kid was my private tutees, because he was in a school in England. Whenever he came back, he would practice me for a GCSE, right? And so I would be his tutor. So I went to his house one day and he said, "Sir, if you ever do a website, you need to call it the language gym, and you have to put your logo of yourself standing like that."
Oh, really?
With glasses and that. And that was 3-4 years before I even thought about creating a website. That was it.
This is the reason why I'm doing these things, because I think that's such a cool thing to know how it, how the logo came from. Because I'm quite a creative guy, and I try to see what's happening behind. I like to see what's happening behind the scene and the designs and stuff. And
I tell you more, Jérôme, the impact that the feedback that the kids have given us has been, I would say, many times a game changer, because there's a little thing they tell you, and you go, all right, okay, that needs to be addressed, because it comes from
it is very important, isn't it? And they usually have some good feedback. And so you have there's a massive momentum in the language. I saw it changing quite a lot. So the design, the content, they're adding more content more all the time. And so you have the listening trainer and sentence trainer, which are quite new, I say ish. It was last year, wasn't it? I like the new design. I think it really is quite nice. So and now there's you can create your own boxing game, isn't it? So where is that going? Where are you coming with this? Because you can design your own thing, or are people, the teachers are going to be able to design more things, or how is it going to be working? What's the plan on this?
If I can just step in for a bit, the site has grown a lot, and one of the advantages, one of the reasons why the site works so well is because Ronan and myself, we use it every day in our lessons, so we can see immediately, we can see what works and doesn't work, and then we can fix things as we go, and that's how we can make it user-friendly for the students and for the teachers as well. With regard to the changing site, as the site's grown, at first we were just looking at growing it, making it bigger and better, but as it's grown, it's actually at one point it's become so big that then the feedback that we've got is that teachers find it hard to navigate at times. We're doing one thing, which is we're going to slightly reorganize the tiles without, not a dramatic change, but slightly reorganize them so that they're a bit clearer which tiles do what. That will happen in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. So sorry, each time you look, it's different, right? And with regard to the community games, Jan, you want to talk about people making games and trying to create that community of creators?
What we're trying to do now, Jérôme, is to create more and more opportunities for teachers to create their own content, but being mindful as well of the fact that we need to create a sequence that allows them to recycle without having to worry about what do I do next.
Sure.
So Dylan has come out with a couple of ideas, which I think we're going to implement, of predetermined sequences, so that when the teacher create their own game, for instance, the boxing game will be converted eventually, not yet, but it will happen, converted into the vocab trainer and the listening trainer. Because what a lot of people don't know is that the content of the vocab trainer, listening trainer, and boxing and audio boxing are exactly the same. They're exactly the same,
okay.
Done on purpose. So now what Dylan and then Ronan, both of them thought about, being classroom teachers, they've been more alert to this than I am. They thought, why don't we have a possibility of a teacher to actually decide, okay, I want to do a single focus sequence, single skill focus sequence, sorry, only listening. So audio boxing, for instance, and then the sequence of activities from the listening trainer, but only the ones that would be enough, for instance, to consolidate that vocabulary. Or I want to do a mixed skill sequence. So you might have the boxing game, then you might have 3 or 4, 5 activities from the vocab trainer, which are reading and writing, 3 or 4 which are listening. And all the teacher has to do is literally click and select the sequence. Ideally, and I think Dylan and I have been talking about this, but it's not set in stone yet, it'd be great to also have the possibility of the teacher creating their own sequence. So they can say, right, I want to do this. So there will be a list of the activities by name or by icon, I don't know what, and the teacher will just say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, click. 5 seconds job, sorted. Don't forget also that we're going to add very soon something that Dylan was maybe about to say. Dylan, you want to talk about the read aloud trainer?
The read aloud trainer, I think we're going to run out of time with the interview, but the read aloud trainer is going to be a brand new section, which will have a sequence of activities, but instead of working on very short or shortish chunks, like in the vocab trainer, we'll be working on a paragraph. So working now at a higher level of comprehension on a text level, as opposed to just single chunks. And but that will be recorded. Those will be recorded by native speakers. It won't just be automatically generated, and that will allow us to have the exact correct intonation, and also to do listening activities, working up from a word level all the way up to meaning level.
Okay. We want, as much as we can, rely on technology, but we also feel consistent with the LAM methodology, listening as modeling, that you should have the native speaker emphasizing certain items because it's reading aloud, right? So you want to make sure that the intonation is clearer. You want to make sure that the words are, certain vowels are rounded, that the th sound is more obvious, that the h sound is more. So, and in French, even more of an issue, of course. So the idea is Dylan and I have come up with a sequence. We still have to submit it to Ronan for approval. He will be involved, of course. The idea is that you start from listening and build up to the reading aloud. So there's going to be some dictation involved. So going slightly beyond the phonics trainer, which will happen as well. But because we were thinking about also the new GCSE, we thought, that way we kill two birds with one stone.
So you're on the creative side, you decided to be going probably a longer way. Obviously, it's easier to use TTS, but text to speech. But you probably want to use more native speaker. So it's a longer process. So it takes longer, but you have a probably more quality, and it works better for whatever you believe in. Okay, that's very interesting to know. It's again, I like that the process, how you things people are working different directions. That's very interesting to know. Fantastic. And now talking about books, because obviously the language gym is not only well, it was before only the website, but obviously it's starting with the books. So Dylan, Gianfranco, there's quite a few books out, isn't it? It's quite an amazing number. And I was chatting with Dylan the other day and trying to get the count of the books. And that's pretty amazing in such a small amount of time.
You know, what's really funny is that I was in England, stranded during COVID. It was my CPD tour had been basically derailed because of COVID. And then Dylan calls me one day and said, Gianfranco, honestly, you know, we have to do it. I said, what? That idea that I've been telling you for years, are we going to do it or not? Because the poor guy felt a little bit left out, and now he's regretting it because he's overwhelmed. And he said to me, Gianfranco, we have to do the sentence builder book, you know, we have to do it. And I said, but it can't just be sentence builders because a lot of people are making those. So he said, all right, how about you think of activities? So we discussed the activities, we discussed the format, and the rest is history. I think Dylan is more qualified to talk about.
Well, like Jan said, we had a chat. We said, look, now's the time. We're going to make a book with originally the very first idea was just to have a book which compiled all the sentence builders. But as Jan said, you know, immediately talking, we said that we can't just have that. We need to also have activities. And then, you know, Jan is actually the muscle and the brains. So he put together this amazing sequence that goes from vocab building to reading to translation to writing. And that's the sequence which was so successful in book one, that's then created a demand for book two and so on. But when we first started working, we were working basically around the clock. But it was funny, I would wake up in the morning and I'd have an email from Jan, and he'd worked for 7 or 8 hours while I was sleeping. I'd be getting up about 5 o'clock and doing 2 hours before I had to get ready for school. Then after school, I'd do another 7 hours. And we're just working around the clock for it only took 3 months, only 3 months to make that first book. And that's how it got made. It was very, very intense. It was just working absolutely just nonstop, flat out.
Jérôme, what you need to take into account is that first, myself with the tests, I produced, I think, I don't know, many resources. Because I had a daughter at that time and I was married and I was head of French and I was working really hard. I remember having to work until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. When Dylan, so I produced tons of resources. And when you get used to it, you develop schemata on how to create activities, which makes it faster. Dylan, when he joined as a garden, he came with a different kind of attitude. But when he started to get into garden as well, it became also, it burst into creating activities himself. And I think that prepared us for that, included that thirst, I think, to finally, and I wish it on every single MFL teacher out there, that thirst for creating something which is not controlled by an authority like a publisher or the government, which put constraints on our teaching. And the fact that we could actually do that and really express ourselves freely, both on the website and the book, that galvanizes you and you get that passion back that very often after a few years of teaching, I'm sure you with your own autonomy, your own projects that you yourself make, Jérôme, whether it is YouTube or thing, you experience the same thing. When you're not controlled by a publisher tells you, sorry, you have to put a picture there. No, you cannot do that kind of activity because the focus group says that it's not good. Whereas with us, whatever, just.
It's kind of liberating, as you say. It's good because you have the freedom. It's your own stuff, and that's good. But it's exciting to do that. But also it's when obviously Jan, you published books before that, and you know that people could be positive or negative about books, and you have to be ready. And and when you work so hard, and I was when I read the Dale's blog, and I felt the pain a little bit also, because when you put something out there, like sometimes you do stuff and people say, well, you're always going to have someone, saying some nasty stuff to you when, it's free or something. It's a bit disheartening. So I think, well, in my humble opinion, it's always nice to be nice to people. If you got something nasty to say, just keep it for yourself. But it's, then when you work so hard on something and people say, that's no good, that it's a bit disheartening, isn't it?
I need to assume responsibility for this. Dylan was very kind, because Dylan said very kindly, Gianfranco ruffled up a few feathers, more than a few at the beginning. I remember that when I first came out with the idea of my approach, Jérôme, I had a barrage of hate messages on Twitter. It was shocking, really, because people should really be open and able to say whatever they wanted. And as a reaction, overreaction, I, of course, fired back. And being Italian, being a bit hot-headed, I fired away. And why am I mentioning this, Jérôme? Because I noticed one thing, that the one person that we really know as the most positive person, a lot of positive people on our team, but the one who's really always spreading the love on Twitter and on Facebook, and the Simona Gravina, right?
Oh yeah.
She spreads super love. I mean, so do you, Jérôme, and other people. But Simona is always constantly putting acronyms.
I totally agree with that.
Why am I saying that? Because a book has got like 15 5-stars and not even one shred of criticism. Whereas people are being a bit more vocal, like myself. Often I can tell you straight away, I criticize one person or I put a rating on something, on tests of an activity which I didn't particularly like, but not a bad rating, because it's unfair to put anything less than a 4. Because if you're using it or you're taking it down, you're downloading it, 4 out of 5 minimum, right? So I never do anything like 3 or 2, because it's not. Guess what? The next day we have a 1 star. Like it's automatic. So unfortunately, the way you behave on Twitter these days, it's and on the media always haunts you back. And
it's also easy to put a 1 star because no one's, you know, if you had to say something, it's very easy just to do on Amazon and put a nasty comment. It's very, because no one sees you. So, but if you had to argue about something, it's, you know, it's always, it's easier, isn't it? Because you hide behind a computer. But anyway, that's the way it works. So Dylan,
John, if I could just butt in on this one as well. The very first book that we put out, we made this big effort. We spent these 3 months making it. And as I've written in my blogs, the book was very good in terms of the sequence. There was a lot of stuff that was good about it, but there was also a large number of errors in it.
as it happens, it's normal. It's the first time. You can do whatever you can, but sometimes, you know, you're going to make mistakes, and it's normal.
Claro. So our proofreading at first wasn't so good, and again, formatting wasn't so good, the proofreading wasn't so good, and all of this is because I'd never had to either format at this level or proofread a 200-page document plus another 80 pages of answers together. So it was absolutely the first time I'd done this, and there's lots of mistakes. But I would say that if it wasn't for making the first book with all of its mistakes, and I keep the original manuscript, the original book with all of its mistakes and its formatting, and, you know, I really treasure it. And I would just, my advice to anyone that's thinking of making anything and thinking, well, maybe I'll make it and it won't be perfect. I think you have to make something that's not perfect in order to improve on it until you get something which is very good. You know, our books still aren't perfect, but I think they're
but you have the recipe and the proofreading is solid, let's say.
We've got some good
I must say something, Jérôme, because it goes against me. I'm ADHD, seriously, I'm not joking. I actually suffer from ADHD. So I've always been a bit cavalier about typos, because to me, it was quite impossible to get it right unless I really, my PhD on metacognition comes from that, because I know what mistakes I make, I tend to, but still it's not enough. So Dylan made a lot of work in terms of revision, but still it wasn't enough, because we realized, unfortunately, that when you write something like that, people don't appreciate that these books are 250 pages, right? A typical book, a GCSE, is done very quickly, doesn't have much. I'm talking about not GCSE books, but resources, like I've been selecting the material and all that. On top of that,
Dan, I'll just to butt in, apart from being 250 pages, there's also about 40 different kinds of activities. So the mistakes, you have 40 different kinds of mistakes you're looking for. Sometimes there's one space too many or too few in filling the space. One of the most common mistakes is correct the mistake, but it'll be a correct sentence, because the proofreader has corrected the mistake already.
Because it's hard to leave mistakes. Yeah, when your brain is meant to be working the other way. Yeah, of course.
But what is interesting is that this horrible comments put by somebody actually made Dylan unhealthily paranoid, but healthily for the business, but unhealthily for him, because now he has to engage 3 or 4 different people, and even after engaging the 3 or 4 proofreaders at enormous cost, on top of that, he gets the unit sent to other people to ensure that people with fresh eyes might find something else. So something that could be published in February ends up being published in May, and it's good because it means that it's error-proof. So now we all kind of are pretty confident when a book goes out, whereas before, but still nowadays, you've got people, and I understand them because they're native speakers, saying, all right, in Spanish or French, you don't say that. But sometimes I don't understand that the choice of the words, or the vocabulary, or even the idiom itself is dictated also by the kind of pattern that you want to teach. For instance, a lovely lady on Facebook, a great person that I know, mentioned the other day, you wouldn't say in Spanish, tengo el pelo moreno, tengo el pelo pelirrojo. Understood. You do it, you can do it, but maybe when you talk fluently in Barcelona or Madrid, you would say, soy moreno, soy pelirrojo. But we wanted to teach the pattern, tengo el pelo. So, and these subtleties, unfortunately, you can't put in the book every single time, hey, Either way, we chose this because is it, but then you get maybe somebody writing, oh, the content of the book is great, but it's not native speaker, because
It's like
3 or 4 times
it's like you cannot please everybody. It's very
Exactly.
hard, isn't it? So it's
exactly
hard work.
very hard.
So what I like now you worked on that. Now you're exploring new avenues of the primary. I think she's fantastic too. With you've got powerhouses like Simona and Stefano and all these fantastic people. We started preparing this. So you got the French primary coming out soon. So what are we talking about then? Do you kind of an idea of when it's going to be? Because I know a lot of people were very excited by the French book. So any idea of when it's coming out there, or Gian?
They're still aiming for end of February. As you know, because you're one of the esteemed fresh pair of eyes.
Have you got any other languages in the work for the primary book also?
The primary book is currently being developed also in Welsh, Chinese, Japanese, Arabic, and also
German.
Italian and German.
Wow, that's amazing.
So if you
Jérôme, I'm getting messages. I'm not sure about Dylan, but we're getting private messages literally every day, like dozens, asking us, when is this book going to be published? And it's a roller coaster, because we chose, of course, to do it in a way that there are different layers of editing, plus different levels of formatting. So
it looks like you're taking the longer road, but you're taking the good road. I mean, it takes longer, but you're producing a quality product, which I think is really important. That's part of the, you don't want to do something quick and not well. So I think it's the way you're working with the website, and you don't want to go through TTS, you want to have people talking instead. So you're going that way, and people got to be patient. If they're excited about the book, that's fantastic. But they can wait. They keep going. They wait, they're going to get a fantastic product, isn't it? So no, impressed with that. The primary is good, and obviously the little primary groups on Facebook, and well, lots of people are there. There's also on Twitter, which is great too, and the guilds. So it was 5 years yesterday, Dylan, isn't it? That you got 15,000 people, 15,000 members on that one. Pretty impressive.
It's 6 years yesterday.
6 years.
We actually officially 6 years. Really, is 4 years, because the guild originally was called Malaysian International Educators, I think, or International
Language
Educators in Malaysia.
Educators. So what happened, Jérôme, is that I won't go into the gossip part of it, because I really want to.
It's not. You don't want that. We're talking nicely about the language gym, so it's good. No goss.
Exactly. So basically, we had a group called Malaysian Foreign Language Teachers in Malaysia, or something like that, and I had that group. Then Dylan and I had this idea of creating guilds. We thought it would be silly to remove all the 1,000 people that are already in language educators in Malaysia. So we built on that. I think we had about 800, 1,000. So what we did, we created a guild literally 4 years ago, calling it guild. So we rebaptized it guild. So technically we've grown at a pace of a rate of 4,000 teachers a year.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's really good. And in terms of books also, there you have the pivot tables coming out. So you've been working with Esmeralda Salgado. She's amazing. So what's a pivot table then? What can you explain me, or what is that?
So the idea was to call it Spanish verb pivot. So one night I had this enlightenment, this eureka moment. I thought, hang on, if you have, that was many years ago when I had this moment, but we never translated it. And then I chatted with Dylan one day, and he said, Gianfranco, I think this could work. Why don't we make it a book? So we decided to develop a book. And the idea is that we always look at grammar as in elle, la, los, las, right? Or in French, le, la, or the perfect tense of avoir plus participle, right? Whereas we think about grammar, Dylan and I, and Ronan, I'm sure, thinks exactly like us, as lexicogrammar, but in the books that we've made so far, that we've written so far, we didn't develop so much in a systematic kind of way the grammar aspect of it, because it was mostly about communication, which I believe this is what we should be concerned about. Build on that, but thinking, okay, you start with a verb, right? But that verb is the core of a sentence. Now that verb has, based on the whatever you're trying to express, has consequences on all the other words, right? So when you say, I have a book, that it all starts with a pivot, the verb. And then when you have, I have a book, then you have a verb with a noun, which is the first thing that you ever acquire. In the pyramid of acquisition is the first thing. It's called a noun, to noun, the verb noun procedure. So when you have that, then you have, I have a book, then I have a read book, then I have a read book that I like. I had a read book that I like very much. So the idea is that you explore the grammar of the small words, so the endings, the inversions, all the grammar things that we normally deal with in isolation in the book, but starting from the verb. Okay. So every single little thing becomes contextualized in the context of a communicative act, but highly grammatical and highly systematic. So you might have, I can go to the cinema. I can go to the cinema with my, and as you go there, you're gonna start working on the my as well. Mo, ma, ta, sa, and all the main things are recycled across context, so that you never just think about mo, ma, ma, and all the ma, ta, sa, the possessive, all in the context of I have, but also I go out with. So the idea is that the verb starts everything. In each unit, you basically focus on the key elements, but not looking only at lexicogrammar, but mirroring lexicogrammar, so zooming out, and then zooming in each bit, which give lexicogrammar more power, expressive power. So that is not learning in isolation or in a theme, but it's a communicative act, and how meaning shapes grammar, starting with the verb. That's what's called verb pivot, because this is how, yeah.
I understand. And how does it work? You seem to be starting always with the Spanish book, and after I think that's a pattern, isn't it? You start by the Spanish book, and after that you move on, and you do it yourself, or you ask people that you know, and to be working on adapting the Spanish book. Is that the way it works? Is that correct?
That's our pattern so far, is we start with the Spanish, and I guess because I'm a Spanish specialist, we start with the Spanish, and then that gets adapted into other languages. And I'd just like to say that in all of these other languages, working with the different teams from all the other languages has been the most fun thing in the last 2 years. The thing that I've appreciated the most, and I don't want to say, I'm scared to say any names because I would have to say too many. Maybe so many lovely, talented people, funny people with funny stories. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure working with the 30 plus teams, and with the now 15 teams, but with the 30 plus people, including yourself, Jérôme. The thing which I'll say is that we haven't approached, Jan can correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't approached, I think, any of, maybe with one exception, we haven't approached any of the contributors. It's always been a case of people saying, oh, I've seen your book, or I've used your book, or my colleague uses your book and I really like it. Does it exist in German or Italian? Does it exist in Irish or Welsh? And then we say, no, it doesn't exist, but potentially we could train you up and you could develop it, and then, yeah, let's do it. And we kind of get a team together. So it's always been, every book, every language has been people approaching us, with the exception only of Arabic recently, that we had to kind of recruit a bit to get a team together. But apart from that, it's always been people coming to us saying, we want this book to exist in our language.
Well, no, we have approached people. Like I approached Jérôme, for instance. What Dylan and I have done, we have of course identified people who were open-minded, or we recognize their talent, people who were innovative, willing to take risks, not the usual kind of person who would say no to our ideas. So people like yourself, like Esmeralda, like Sylvia, like Sonia, people that we kind of screened on Twitter. Sounds like we are stalking them on Twitter, but we didn't. And that, first of all, and this is the big mission of the language gym, because I don't want to sound negative, right? But there's always been an establishment which has set who does what. Yeah, if you look at the CPD scene until a few years ago, it was always the same 5 or 6 people. When you look at the book writing, always the same 5 or 6 people. If you look at the language association that dominated it, was only one, and it was always the ideas coming from that. Fine, brilliant, they're great people, great associations, great contributions, but we felt the need to innovate. And by innovate and renovating, we mean also bringing new blood in. People who are excellent but don't have any voice, because either they don't subscribe to a particular methodology, or because they simply don't have connections, or simply because they're shy, maybe. They don't even know. Like, take Sonia, right? Sonia is an amazing linguist, but she would never put herself forward. She is not a character. She's a fantastic, very, very meticulous, an amazing linguist. I mean, know that woman. She speaks Spanish like a Spaniard, and she specialism is German. But you know what, Jérôme, every single time I went to a school in November to do my CPD tour, I would have somebody who follows Twitter, not necessarily us, but Twitter. And the first compliment is, you know, well done to you for getting all these people involved. There's so much talent out there. If one thing Dylan and I discovered is there's so much untapped talent, and we are happy to give yourself and other people the chance to shine. I mean, your adaptation of the book has been fantastic.
Talking about talent, you worked with Martin Lapworth, and sentencebuilders.com are just like absolutely exploded, doesn't it? It's just started. I was a lucky bunny to be part of the beta group and part of the building up. So using all the language gym resources and it's just a website, and it's just fantastic, isn't it? What made you work with Martin? How did you approach him? How did it work?
So it was 3 years ago. I don't know why. I was chatting with him on Facebook, as we often do, and I said, Martin, we really need to set up this website. And he said, it's going to take a bit of I'm busy with TeachFit, but we'll definitely do it. That was 2 or 3 years ago. So it took a while. And then, of course, Dylan and Ronan chipped in, because I said, I can't do it by myself. Get people, you know, I can vouch for Dylan and Ronan being fantastic. Martin already knew Dylan because he interacted with him several times. And to be honest, Dylan and Ronan have done a much greater job than I have. I put the sequence in so what I did, I created the sequence of the activities for Martin. Mm-hmm. We sat down, he said to me, Gianfranco, come up with a sequence that is viable and you think it would work. So I remember spending a whole night thinking about it. Woke up in the morning, came out with all the sequence, all based on EPI. And then, of course, Dylan had the idea, I think, of why don't we put the content of the books. And that was a stroke of genius, of course, because it meant that, yeah, that means that everyone is happy. Because, of course,
you know, but the fact also that you can also create your sentence builders, or whatever name you can call it. It's a substitution table. That's the one. It is pretty good, isn't it? So if you can do one of them you can create your own stuff. You have your stuff there, which is amazing, and you can do all the things. And the two websites are very the language gym and sentence builders. They work very well together, because you have a good balance of two things there. And I know, obviously, my school we both subscribe to the two of you, and so the kids, they say, oh, today we're going to be doing the language. Yeah, they're all excited doing this, and the week after we're going to be doing sentence builders. It's good to have a variety of things. You know, you have some solid content there also, which is great. But yeah, I'm so impressed with this partnership with Martin. And my final question, because we've been going on for quite a large amount of time now, even though I would love to continue, you probably are busy today. You two are extremely busy people. So Jan, you go touring, you just keep writing stuff online. You've got books. You probably have probably a book with Steve Smith going on. Dylan is a family man. He's got to be looking after. He's got to be going to school, which is also doing that, preparing lessons and stuff, doing stuff at school. Family man, looking after the stuff, the books and stuff like that. Guys, how do you do it? Because not so long ago, I was doing too many things at the same time and my brain exploded and I had to slow down a little bit. How do you keep sane? Just give me the recipe. Let me know.
I don't know. Really, I just find that almost the capacity for doing things is almost like ever expanding. I haven't quite reached my limit. I would say I'm at my limit, but I haven't overstepped it yet. I think it's just a case of just having a momentum, and we've got Jan's doing this. Sometimes last week I did say the words that the cracks are beginning to show.
Oh, all right, sure. Okay, yeah.
I'm
not surprised.
Just a question of staying busy, just having momentum, and whenever you've got a really big job, you just have to be the ultimate anti-procrastinator. Just start every job immediately and keep working until it's finished and just never stop. I don't think it's sustainable for forever, this kind of intensity, but at the moment there's a balance. In terms of, you're going to ask, what do I do to stay sane? Really, just if I'm not working, then the moments when I'm not working, I spend that time with my family and do a little bit of running as well. But that's it, really. It's just at the moment, just work.
The music?
Obviously, the music as well. I play more guitar at school. I'm going to write the jingle. If you will.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a jingle, Dylan.
I'll send you some jingle ideas for this series. But yeah, really, it's just work and then family. I play more guitar at school than I do at home.
At school, what do you mean? You teach with the guitar, or what do you do?
Well, I'll teach the kids to sing a song. I've got a guitar in my classroom always, and a ukulele as well.
Okay.
So it's a permanent feature. So I'll teach them to sing a song, or if they're doing a delayed copying, sometimes I might distract them in between with a bit of music. But yeah, I've always got a guitar on me at school. But yeah, no, I'm loving life right now. Everything's so much fun, and working with Jan is hilarious. It's inspiring. It's inspiring. You know, Gianfranco is what you'd call, he's a modern day genius, and he often, you'll speak to him I speak to Jan every day. I have the privilege of speaking to Jan every single day, and that includes Saturdays and Sundays. And often he'll ring you up in the morning. He's like, Dylan, it's a little bit like Doc from Back to the Future. Woken up and I've got an amazing idea, and then he'll explain, and it is an amazing idea, and it's always so exciting working with Jan. It's so much fun. So thank you, Jan.
Apart from the many pranks that I play on him, like the other day, I changed his profile on Amazon. I hacked into his profile and I put things like I live in I'm a penguin breeder and all sort of stupid things. He was quite annoyed. Jérôme, the main thing really is to be really, is what really drives you, because a lot of people do this job for money. And I can tell you, of course, the money comes in, but if you're really passionate about what you do, you find the time. And I can tell, because sometimes in other jobs that I had before, when the passion started to dwindle, you did it just because you had to do it. But when you see Martin is not just business driven. Martin is crazy about what he does. I mean, the guy is a genius, works his socks off every day, but he has a passion. There are other websites that charge 500, 600, other that charge 400 per language. Ridiculous. You don't have to. I can tell you honestly. Then, of course, if you want to, we could do, and we could make loads of money because we got about 3,000 schools subscribed to us, right? We could, but we would never think about it because, and when the other day, Ronan called Dylan and I, guys, I think we should increase the fees. First thing Dylan said, no need. We're happy with what we have. There's no need to get greedy and start these bad vibes as if we want to make money, because at the end of the day, tell you, with the amount of customer service people that you need, with the fees that you pay for the server, you can actually make a decent living charging as much as we do. I honestly don't understand why people charge all the money that they do. Yeah. Martin's website charges peanuts, really. How much is it, Dylan? It's very little, right? It's all about the passion. They've done things like the Chinese Centers Builders book, which is purely to promote Chinese. We made absolutely zero money from that. But the idea is to really promote that language, or Welsh, same thing with Welsh. Yeah. So it's about the passion. And when you do have the passion, like Dylan, myself, and Ronan have now, I hope it lasts forever, touch wood. You'd really put everything in a different kind of perspective. You just want to get it right. You want to get it great. I mean, I applaud Dylan's commitment to getting everything right in terms of proofreading, for instance. It's not enough what he put in creativity in the activities. On top of that, he wants to make sure that the product that a teacher gets in the classroom is perfect. And as you know, he doesn't get any extra.
Yeah, absolutely. But what do you do to relax, Gian?
To relax?
Yeah. Do you relax?
Oh yeah. Oh no. I tell you one thing. A big change in my life that this activities that I'm doing has created with me is the sense of guilt for not working, which is really weird. So now I got to a point where if I'm not doing something and I'm not doing it good, I feel guilty. It's not just not being busy, but I need to make sure that the CPD that I create is absolutely transformative. I need to make sure that the activities that I send to Deal and Deal sends to me, I'm sure he feels the same, has to be something that the teacher is going to go, wow, and that on the one hand, it really makes you work harder. On the other hand, it gives you more gratification. So it's bad because of the stress. So to answer your questions, I do Buddhist meditation. I tend to do weights at least once a week. I strongly recommend. I'm 56 now, and I tell you that the reason why I'm still looking decent, apart from the many injections of Botox, I'm kidding, it's walks. Walking a lot and listening to music and forgetting about the world is the most natural thing that, thanks because of COVID, we tend to do more of, but it's something that everyone should do every day, with or without the dog, because without that, I think I would go nuts. That daily walk really is, and I tell you something, when I go back home after a walk, imagine I've been working hard on thinking something for my CPD or for the book or anything, especially my CPD at the moment is assessment, curriculum, the really hard ones. Because if you want to give something new, you need to read a lot of literature. You can't just go like, unfortunately, a lot of people do, or go there and give your own ideas. I want to read the cutting edge research. And when I go back home, I'm in stress, but when I go for a walk and then I come back home, the ideas all fall in the right place. It's really weird, but it always happens after a long walk. It seems like everything goes back together in the right place.
It's something that works for you. That's great. That's fantastic. And going back to the language, to the website, obviously people want to have a try before buying, which is great. So if people are listening to us now and say they want to have a play in the language, what do they need to do? If they need to contact someone, they have an address, they can go onto the website I'll put it in the chat in YouTube. So they have to contact people and say, can I have a try? How does that work?
It's a 3-day trial by emailing support@language-gym.com. And then they can have a trial and access all areas, see what's in there. 3 days, I think, is a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, it is definitely 3 days. Plenty, yeah, it's plenty to know what's happening. Fantastic. It's been enlightening this morning. I loved chatting with you too. That was fantastic.
Hey, Jérôme,
Gian, go for it.
Yeah, I would like to plug the next book after.
Yes.
So Dylan's now with Esmeralda. I've done my bit. Now they're doing the final editing, cleanup, everything. So we all done a content bit. Now they are dealing with the editing bit. So that will come up, I think, maybe May, June, right? Yeah. By the same time, we should be coming out with something which a lot of teachers will appreciate a bit late for the current GCSE. I mean, for 2022, but great for 2023. I'm not sure. I think it's 2024 also, right? That the current GCSE will still be in place. So we'll come out with the second revision GCSE workbook, because people have been asking to the verge of being naggy, some of them in a good way, to nudge us, because they like the first one. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I must say that we were not going to do that, because I'm thinking, come on, it's going to change in 2 years, right? But because of the pressure, good pressure from people, we decided to do it. That should come out presumably by the summer. And we're going to have a book that goes with both GCSE revisions, so book one and the one that we're going to create, which is going to be all photocopyable worksheets to do, my revision quickies idea. So it's going to be, in the end, the teacher will have for Spanish and French by the summer, end of the summer for Spanish. They should have 2 GCSE revision workbooks which cover every single topic in the AQA and the Excel thing, plus this book of revision quickies in French and Spanish. And hopefully you will be involved, Jérôme, in the editing. And what is going to happen basically is that as soon as the the examination boards, the awarding bodies publish the sprigging themes and word lists, then we'll start either adapting those books, because some of the themes will be the same, of course, or basically creating bespoke books for that GCSE. And that will be done, again, at the speed of light, because we're not bound by any publishing houses regulations or anything. So it'll be done. And everything will be on the Language Gym website too.
Fantastic. So these are the new things coming out soon then. Brilliant. Excellent. So before we go now, Dylan, have you got an idea about a jingle? Just to finish on a bit of music. Come on. I'll put you on the spot, but come on.
It's for the Spotlight series, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Spotlight with Jérôme. Spotlight. No, it'll be like Spotlight with Jérôme. No, there. Spotlight with Jérôme. I need to work on it, Jérôme.
That's a good start. I like it. Excellent. That's good. That's perfect for finishing today. Guys, thank you ever so much for chatting with me this morning. I'm gonna obviously edit that and put it on onto YouTube. So if you're happy with that, and there we go.